For centuries, we've been on this quest to peer inside the human brain, to figure out how we think, how we feel, how we act. Well, today, we're exploring a technology that literally shines a light on our thoughts. It's called Functional Near-Infrared Spectroscopy, or fNIRS for short. Okay, so how on earth is this even possible? How do you track what's happening in someone's brain while they're completely lost in a VR world, playing an instrument, or even climbing a mountain? Think about traditional brain scanners. They're these massive, noisy machines where you have to lie perfectly still. But what if you could just take the lab with you, out into the real world?
Well, that's exactly the problem that fNIRS was designed to solve. It's almost like opening a window directly into the brain, letting us see its activity in a totally new light. So let's dive in and take a look. So, what is fNIRS, really? At its core, it's a totally non-invasive technique that uses light to get a functional picture of the brain. And that word functional is key. It doesn't just show us a static map of the brain's structure, it shows us the brain in action. It does this by tracking what's called hemodynamic activity, which, is just a fancy way of saying it tracks blood flow. Okay, but here's where it gets really fascinating. How in the world does it work? How can a simple beam of light possibly tell us anything about something as complex as a thought? Let's get into the science behind it, because it's pretty clever. Yeah, this is probably the first question that popped into your head, right? It seems impossible. How does light get through your skull? Well, it turns out our bodies have this kind of hidden feature that makes it all possible. And here it is, the first big piece of the puzzle. It's this phenomenon known as the optical window. It's pretty amazing, actually. It turns out that at a very specific range of near-infrared light, our biological tissues, skin, bone, all of it, becomes surprisingly transparent. This allows that light to pass right through and reach the outer layer of the brain, the cortex. Okay, but just getting light in there isn't enough, right? We need it to actually tell us something. And for that, we have a secret agent, and its name is hemoglobin. It's that protein in your red blood cells that's responsible for carrying oxygen. And as luck would have it, hemoglobin is a fantastic absorber of that very same near-infrared light. Now, this is where it gets really, really clever. Take a look at this. The key is that not all hemoglobin is the same. You've got oxygen-rich blood, that's called oxyhemoglobin, and you've got oxygen-poor blood, or deoxyhemoglobin. And as you can see from these two lines, they absorb light completely differently. So by shining light at two very specific wavelengths where their absorption is most different, we can actually measure how much of each type is present. And here's the payoff. It's actually pretty intuitive. When a part of your brain starts working harder, it acts just like a muscle. It needs more fuel, which means it calls for more oxygen-rich blood. So by simply tracking these changes and how the light is absorbed, fNIRS can create a real-time map of brain activation. It's a simple equation. More oxygen equals more neural activity. Pretty cool, right? All right, so it's important to know that fNIRS isn't just one single thing. It's more like a whole family of technologies, and each one has its own unique strengths and, its weaknesses. Let's open up the toolkit and see what's inside. Let's quickly break this down. So the most common one you'll see is called continuous wave, or CW. This is kind of your workhorse. It's simple, it's portable, it's relatively cheap. The catch? It can only measure relative changes in blood flow, not the exact amounts. Then you step up to frequency domain and time domain systems. Now, these guys are more complex, definitely more expensive, but they give you much more precise, absolute measurements. So, like with a lot of tech, it's really a trade-off. You're balancing portability and cost against the level of precision you really need. Okay, so that's enough of the theory. The real magic of fNIRS isn't just how it works, but what it lets us do. Let's check out some amazing examples of how scientists are using this to map brains literally out in the wild. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say in the wild. Look at this. You're literally looking at a researcher wearing a portable fNIRS system during a high-altitude expedition, trying to study how the brain responds to low oxygen. In that kind of extreme environment, that's something you could just never, ever do with a traditional scanner. And believe it or not, it gets even cooler. This right here is a technique called hyperscanning. What you're seeing is scientists recording the brain activity of both of these violinists at the same time to see how their brains actually synchronize while they play together. This is incredible. It's opening up this whole new field of social neuroscience where we can study brain-to-brain interaction as it happens. The applications are also pushing into the clinical world and even into stuff that sounds like science fiction. fNIRS is being used to create brain-computer interfaces, literally letting people control devices just by thinking. And it's also being used to track brain recovery in patients who are going through neurorehabilitation. It's pretty powerful stuff.
So, fNIRS sounds pretty incredible, right? And it is. But like any technology, it's not perfect. It has some absolutely amazing potential, but also some very real limitations. So let's make sure we get a balanced picture here.
The classic comparison you'll always hear is with fMRI. And here's probably the simplest way to think about it. An fMRI gives you this absolutely stunning, super high-resolution picture of the brain. But you have to be perfectly still inside a giant, clanking magnet. fNIRS, on the other hand, gives you a picture with a bit less detail, but you can wear it almost anywhere while you're doing almost anything. They're not really competing, they just answer different kinds of questions.
So let's just quickly recap the big advantages here. It's totally safe and non-invasive. It's way cheaper than an fMRI. It's got great temporal resolution, meaning it's fast. And the biggest one, it's portable enough for real-world studies. Oh, and here's a huge bonus. It's perfectly safe for people who have medical implants, like cochlear implants, who can't go anywhere near the powerful magnet of an MRI machine. But we also have to be honest about the downsides. The spatial resolution, how detailed the picture is, just isn't as good as fMRI. And because it's using light, it can really only measure the outer surface of the brain, the cortex, maybe about 4 centimeters deep. It just can't peer into those really deep brain structures. And yeah, even practical things, like someone having really dense hair, can sometimes interfere with the signal. And all of this really leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. We've seen what fNIRS can do right now, on mountainsides, in concert halls, inside virtual worlds. So as this technology keeps getting smaller, more powerful, and truly wearable, what new mysteries of the human mind are we going to uncover next? What happens when we can really start to see our thoughts out in the wild?